President Trump has just nominated D.C. Appeals Court Judge Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court, and I'll begin the confirmation hearings in the U.S. Senate. We're joined now by local attorney and San Diego State business professor Dan Eaton. Dan, thank you as always for your time. When you see this nominee come down here tonight, what is your reaction?
There's good and bad news for people who either support or oppose this nomination. On the one hand, he has a very long paper trail. On the other hand, he has a very long paper trail. That is to say that it's going to be fairly clear that this guy is going to be a reliable conservative vote. On the other hand, it gives the Democrats a lot to pick apart. Understand, he was the primary author of the Starr report, the independent counsel report on which he worked.
Oh, absolutely. And so there are interesting things here. There are folks who, he clerked for Anthony Kennedy, but there are folks who are looking at him possibly moving the court to the right. And as you say, that looks to be the case.
Oh, I don't think there's any question that he's going to move the court to the right, even understanding that judges don't decide cases as Republicans or Democrats. They decide them based on their view of the law. And he takes a very strong textualist view of the law, which is that he says, as he said in his remarks tonight, that the law is what it is written to be. So you can expect that, in fact, he will move, his philosophy is going to be closer to Scalia and Alito than it was to Kennedy, his former boss. This is a man, by the way, who has extensive Bush ties, which many thought would be held against him. But the conservative legal establishment, the Federalist Society, and so forth, generally supported this nominee. And that may have played a role in why he was standing next to the president tonight.
Yeah, very interesting. Dan Eaton with us here, our local attorney, our legal analyst here, professor out at San Diego State. Very interesting that this was the nominee that came through, but there was that very specific list, Dan, that was put forward even 2 years ago as you looked into the campaign, and the president moved forward with that.
That's right. That's what's so fascinating about it, is he had a range of people from whom to choose, including one, Tom Hardiman, who was runner-up in the last Supreme Court pick, who was recommended by Trump's very own sister, Marianne Trump Barry, who served with Tom Hardiman on the Third Circuit for a very long time. This was very much an establishment pick. This is a pick that is going to provoke a lot of people. McConnell suggested two other nominees who are going to provoke less ire from the Democrats. But at the end of the day, the 51 Republicans vote that they have in the Senate is a larger number than the 49 that the Democrats control. And given that now a simple majority is all that's needed to confirm a Supreme Court justice, Trump may have decided that this was a fight he was willing to make.
And it does appear that Thomas Hardiman was the runner-up in this case as well, 2 years in a row. Very interesting there. But from what you just said, Dan, it does look like this nomination will move forward through the confirmation process and should get confirmation here before October.
Of course, you never know if there are going to be any kind of surprises, but I don't expect that a man who has served on the bench for 12 years on the D.C. Circuit, with as long a history as he has in the executive branch, working for George W. Bush, working as Solicitor General, Assistant Solicitor General under Ken Starr, has an awful lot of surprises. He's pretty well known, and that's both a good and a bad. On the one hand, it gives his supporters a lot to talk about. On the other hand, it gives his opponents an awful lot to talk about, and there's going to be a basic clash in general philosophy about how you read the law, which is why this majestic document that we all celebrate, the Constitution, the 150th anniversary of the 14th Amendment, the ratification of which we celebrate today, is very much at issue. And that's what everybody's going to be focused on. How is this man going to read the law? He's unlikely to give a lot of clues. But the fact is that this process is going to work its way out. And from now on, this is a political process. When he takes the bench, then it's a legal one. But for now, he's entered political terrain.
And to that political terrain, there were 3 Democrats who crossed over and voted for the confirmation of Neil Gorsuch last year. Those are Democrats who are representing in the Senate red states. And so there'll be a big political burst for them, but also some of the moderate Republicans as well in places like Maine and Alaska.
Well, that's right. Of course, you're talking about Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski from Maine and Alaska, respectively, who support Roe versus Wade. So those are going to be the votes that you are going to want to watch. But at the end of the day, if Judge Kavanaugh plays it like Judge Gorsuch did, and it doesn't really give much clues as to how he intends to vote on specific cases, he's probably going to be all right. But this is going to be interesting with respect to the red state Democrats, because if they vote to confirm him, there is some question about whether it's going to have political consequences for them, whether it's going to cut off their funding source. On the other hand, that could jeopardize the Democrats from retaking the Senate. There are all kinds of political calculations that are going to play on these individual senators as they consider this nomination. And at the end of the day, you got to have at least 50 votes if you're the Republican side to get confirmed, because of course Mike Pence, the vice president, will break the tie in favor of this nomination. But this is a political process right now, and you're going to watch to see the way the political actors, including those outside of the Senate, the activists and so forth, have their say starting now.
Well, Dan Eaton, we always appreciate your enthusiasm, your knowledge, your history of the Supreme Court. Thank you very, very much, as always, for your time, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So, Brett Kavanaugh nominated here tonight as the latest nominee for the Supreme Court to replace the retiring Anthony Kennedy, a judge he clerked for during his career before he took over the 12 years on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. Dan Eaton breaking things down for us here. We'll hear from both the nominee and the president coming up at the top of the hour at 7 o'clock. KOGO News.